Greenland's leadership pushed back hard this past week. So, Donald Trump's allies traveled to Greenland this week expecting influence and leverage and a political victory. Instead, they got publicly rejected. So, Greenland's leadership pushed back hard against growing pressure and rhetoric coming from Trump's admin, and Trump-aligned figures surrounding American influence and control over the island. And honestly, the response from Greenland could not have been clearer. Greenland is not for sale. Greenland is not becoming an American territory, and Greenland's sovereignty is not up for negotiation. One of the people who traveled there was Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry, who appeared at a business conference alongside other Trump-aligned figures. But instead of being welcomed warmly, the visit quickly became tense. Greenlandic officials openly drew what they called red lines regarding sovereignty and foreign control. They stated clearly, Greenland belongs to the Greenlandic people. Foreign governments cannot simply pressure or take over another country, and any future cooperation with the U.S. must happen with respect in international law. Also, with Greenland's autonomy. At one point during the trip, Landry became frustrated, and he visibly showed that frustration with reporters questioning the purpose of the visit and whether anything meaningful had actually been accomplished. And then things got even stranger. Landry argued that Greenland wasn't even on the map before Donald Trump started talking about it, which is an objectively bizarre statement considering Greenland has been strategically important to NATO, to Denmark, and the United States for decades. The United States already has military agreements in Greenland. There are already American military installations there. And Greenland has long been one of the most strategically important locations in the Arctic itself. But what seems to be happening now feels much larger politically. So Trump and some of his allies increasingly talk about Greenland almost like a business acquisition, rather than a sovereign territory with its own people, with its own government, and its own political leadership. And that is where this becomes deeply uncomfortable internationally, because the rhetoric increasingly sounds less like diplomacy and more like pressure or intimidation or territorial ambition, and again, this strong arm type of politics. Greenland's foreign minister responded directly by saying, "You cannot simply take over a country." That statement alone tells how seriously Greenland's leadership is taking this situation. And to be very clear, I personally believe this should concern people regardless of party. Again, because once powerful governments begin talking about sovereign territories like assets to be acquired, negotiated over, or even pressured into submission, every democratic nation should pay attention. There are critics that are increasingly comparing this style of rhetoric to the kind of authoritarian and imperial language historically used by governments seeking territorial expansion under the justification of security or strategic interest. Now, to be fair, Trump allies argue that they are trying to strengthen cooperation and increase American engagement in Greenland after years of neglect from prior administrations. But Greenland's leaders are making it clear that cooperation is one thing, attempting to dominate, pressure, or politically corner a smaller nation is something very, very different. And what stood out most throughout this entire visit was how firmly Greenland pushed back publicly. Not quietly, not behind closed doors, publicly. They want the world to understand their sovereignty is not negotiable. Follow this channel as I continue overseeing the political stories that are shaping our country right now.